You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening and welcome to Haunted Histories. Now, I know you're used to hearing the lovely tones of my Penny G. Morgan, and don't worry, you're going to be hearing plenty from her. But I've taken the helm of the Haunted Histories studio tonight because I wanted to take a deeper look at my lovely Penny herself. She is, of course, your usual co-host, author, paranormal investigator, researcher, as well as the presenter of Haunted Histories, Penny G. Morgan. Good evening, Penny. How are you?
Watcher, this is so weird.
You don't like this, do you?
I don't. I feel like I'm. Yeah, I feel like I've kind of something's been cut off. It feels very strange. Very strange. Yeah. I mean, you should be honoured though that I'm letting you introduce my show.
Wow, you didn't really get a lot of choice. You know, when two controlling giants come together.
Although saying that, when we have done shows together, they've been pretty darn good shows. So this should be quite good fun. This should be quite good fun.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier today, actually, and I was thinking that I haven't actually interviewed you as a person in your own right. We've done shows together on topics plenty of times, but we've not actually done a show where I pin you down and interview you, where I've done pretty much all the others.
No, you've done. I think the nearest we've done is we've done a couple of roundups, haven't we? About 6 months worth. Yeah, but we've never done an actual. I think it was Joe. Joe's the only one who's actually interviewed me on Parasearch. So yeah, it's overdue. I guess it's overdue.
Well overdue, I would say, because you've been with the station pretty much from the beginning, haven't you?
More or less, yeah. About 4 months in, I think I joined. 4 or 5 months in.
And your show is actually very different now to how it was when you first started.
It's evolved a bit. Yeah, I've got more. I've kind of. It's actually evolved 3 or 4 times. Different, like as I spot things that I think might work better, and I've changed them slightly, and got more confident with having a slightly different delivery, I suppose you could say.
Do you remember what your very first show was?
Tower of London, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very. Yeah. You bear in mind, everybody, she has done over 90 odd shows now for Parasearch Radio. There is a plethora of information. I love that word.
It's good, isn't it? Plethora.
It's such a good word. The amount of locations you've covered, and not just the locations that you cover in the show, it's the history, the paranormal happenings. You know, you cram a heck of a lot into 1 hour, don't you?
I try to. My sort of, when people ask me why I do what I do, and do I class myself as a paranormal investigator or a historian? Probably a historian who does investigating, not an investigator who dabbles in history. Because if I got asked once, if you could give up one of them, history or the paranormal, which would it be? And it would probably have to be the paranormal. You know, it's a bit like that question, cheese or chocolate. It's difficult, but you're going to make a decision. But I want anyone who listens to one of my shows to get something out of it. So if they love history, they might find the paranormal side interesting, or they might find some of the little historical nuggets that I liked. You know, it seems to have been my not MO, but you know what I mean. They finding these little nuggets out that nearly every week a guest will go, do you know what? I thought I knew a lot about this place. And that's my sort of raison d'etre, I suppose you could say. But if they're into the paranormal, and hope, or vice versa, they'll hopefully get something out of it. And that's why I kind of do it the way I do. That it appeals to historians in that they get to hear about the history, and they might learn a bit about the paranormal, or to think, well, actually, it's not completely ridiculous. And the paranormal investigators, I mean, the biggest one is when Ryan Griffiths and I chat, and we'll tease our good friend Lee Roberts, who says he hates history, won't even talk history. Well, Ryan's caught him talking about a few things about history that he's read that I've written. Yeah. And he's like, I know where you got that. She's got you talking history. And it's like, no, she hasn't. I have. So for me, someone who is a sort of dyed in the wool, I don't do history, turning around saying, actually, I'm going to read up on that. that's like a win for me. That's a huge win.
Gosh,
huge.
Yeah, that shows that that you're being inspirational, that you're bringing history alive to people, and then it's bringing more of an interest into the paranormal field, because history is actually a huge part of that. And we actually did a show. I don't know if you remember this one. It was a Spirit Dimension show where we talked about the importance of history, didn't we?
We did,
in regards to paranormal investigating. Has your feelings changed on that at all?
Nope.
I knew you was going to say that. No, not at all. Move on.
I've kind of become a bit less militant about it. The more sort of psychic mediums and stuff I've worked with, I kind of understand them not wanting to know it. So I'm a bit more sort of, if someone tells me the history, and I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. The British Schools Museum in Hitching, amazing place, and the chap who manages it, Sam, who will be doing a show with me next year. I'll just drop that in now. We're going to be doing a show. He was trying to tell us about the history of the place when I visited there with the Paranormal Sisters. And, of course, the wonderful Sam Bennett was like, no, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. So I pulled him to one side and said, tell me the stuff, and then I can validate what she might be picking up. And so same with when I've done stuff for Simply Ghost Nights at, say, Gresson Hall Workhouse. Stuart Dawson, who's there, if you like, resident medium, he'll go out the room when I do a little history talk, because we'll say to the people, do you want me to talk about the history? And then it's up to them. But he will always leave the room, so he can't hear it. And I've become a lot less sort of almost like, well, why are you walking away? Why don't you want to learn this? This is really interesting, to more of a, I know they'll ask me at the end.
Yeah.
If I know anything. So I have become a bit less militant, but I also think with history, it's the way you talk about it. It's not all dusty and boring. And it was, I'm not hogging the interview, by the way, but I'm just
it is all about you, babe. You carry on. Making my life very easy back here.
I'm one of those good guests. Yeah, I'm one of those good guests that you're not like pulling.
I'm just off to make a cuppa. I know I've got time. No, carry on.
Give me a sec. Say, if you say tea time, I'll just keep talking. It's fine. I noticed that Barry Frankish put a post on his BRF page today saying it's time for some more educational paranormal programs rather than entertainment. Mm-hmm. And I wrote back and said, can't they be both?
Yeah.
And I said, but that's how I am with the history. I want, when I'm teaching history, whether it's to my son's school, which I'm actually going to be doing some talks to again this year, or to people listening to my show, or people who've come along for a public sort of ghost hunt event, whatever you want to call it. If I can make what I'm telling them entertaining, and this goes with whatever I'm talking about, whether it's my day job, whether it's talking about something I've written, if you make it interesting and entertaining, they're more likely to listen. They're more likely to take it on board than if you say, well, in 1917 at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That's not going to work. So if you're going to say, so you can imagine you're just sitting down to eat your lunch. It's January and some of your windows are blown in. That's going to sound a lot more interesting than saying on the 19th of January 1917, blah blah blah. You know, it's all about how you word it and that's where, for me, you can educate paranormal techniques. You can educate history. You can educate anything, but do it in an entertaining way that people can latch onto it.
Can relate to it as well.
Yeah.
You know that is something you certainly do with your show, because you have guests on. Like every week, in relation to the location that you're talking about that week. What are some of the outstanding ones for you? I don't want to get into too much of a look back, but, you know, particularly at this point in the year, we wait for the last day of the year for that one. But what are some of the ones that stood out to you for you?
They're friends now as well. You know, that's the amazing thing. I class them as friends now because we have such a good laugh when we're talking. Crumbs. I think I've got something out of every guest I've had on. I really do. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy learning from other people. I'm not, even though some people think I'm like a know-it-all, and I mean, my nickname when I used to play rugby was Private Oracle. But I'm always learning. I'm never if somebody says to me, watch this documentary, it's really interesting, I will watch it and make my own mind up about whether I think it's interesting, but I guarantee I'll learn something from it. I don't always assume. I know, Richard Clements and I, we always have those little sort of jokes about who's the best historian and all that kind of thing that people probably see
There's
us
a lot
doing
of back
in the chat.
stuff that goes on behind the Parasearch team, and it is legendary. Between there's two people on the Parasearch team. First of all is Richard Clements. That's an ongoing battle, I would say.
It's an amiable battle. We're not trying to kill each other.
No.
We actually think quite highly of each other. I mean, it's his bloody fault I'm doing this show in the first place. But
and the other one is actually Mark Manley, who's actually a lot more intelligent than he actually shows. And when we do quizzes, no one else can get a word in with them. It's the pair of them.
Christmas.
So funny.
I won, I think, if I remember rightly.
Well,
it was
in
insulting.
It was in debate, Ben. It weren't clear cut as that.
But I think there was one question you said, right, Penny can't answer, give the others a chance. I was like, bloody hell, that's not fair.
No, it's totally fair. Nobody else was on that show apart from you and Mark and me asking questions. Oh, bless you. But it is a thing.
No, I am competitive, but I'm also competitive to keep improving. That's the thing that people don't realise with me. I don't think I know it all. Far from it. And I always work on that old adage: the more you learn, the less you know. And it's true. Yeah. It's true. Whatever field you're in, whatever it is you're looking at. It's why I get so annoyed when somebody says they're an expert in the paranormal. No, you have experience. You're not an expert. Nobody is an expert.
You cover too many areas, I think, to become an expert in one. Unless you sit down and specialise in one specific area, you can't. I mean, like, I've had this, not argument, but conversation with Cal Cooper. He classes himself as an expert in his field, in what he does. In the parapsychology field, because he knows that subject inside out. Yeah. But generally, jack of all trades, master of none, because we're dipping in too much to too many different, too many different concepts all the time, aren't we? I don't know if that's how you feel.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if someone says to me, what's your favourite period of history to study? Mine's getting bigger. This is the problem. It used to be World War II. Used to be World War II and primarily aviation, which is still, as you know, a massive love of mine. I mean, if you could dump me on an old World War II airfield that still had some aircraft there and leave me there for a week in a caravan with food and water, I'd probably be like happy as a pig in the proverbial. But then I read Birdsong. And so I was like, oh, World War One, that looks a bit interesting. Let's do a bit more digging into that. And then you start to go backwards. And then I started looking at the workhouse movement and the asylums, Victorian era, thinking, wow, this is actually quite underrepresented, if that makes sense. Yeah. Let's look into that a bit more. So my specialist areas are getting bigger. But anything I get to look at is fascinating. I mean, I know that Paul did a show on Castle Rising last night on the Paranormal Concept with Viv, wasn't it? Viv Powell.
Yeah, that's right.
And the irony was, her and I had our Facebook friendiversary yesterday, and it was ironic that the reason her and I became friends was we did a show on Castle Rising about 2 years ago, and it was finding out about that place and the things that were associated with it and stuff. Not the period of history that I'm normally that enamoured with. But it was like, blimey, these people are amazing. And I mean, so talking about memorable shows, the one I did with Jane Harris recently sticks out. I've had so many people say to me, when are you and Jane doing another show? That was so good. And it was very natural. The show
Cagney and Lacey, everybody.
Cagney and Lacey. Yeah. It's well, we're going to be meeting for the first time at the end of January, so there's going to be some loving going on, I reckon.
Sorry.
Yeah,
as my mind went all weird then.
Yeah, a few
maybe I shouldn't allow
like that
to meet.
A few people have got like that when I've said about me and Jane. But what else? Oh, the show I did with Gina Pesanti and Chris Smith from Tennessee Wraith Chasers on, it was a place in Kentucky that I've completely forgotten the name of it. That was another one. It was so much fun to do because it was easy. There was banter, there was conversation, there was mutual respect. The one I did with Barry Fitzgerald on Lep Castle, oh my God, I could listen to him talk for hours.
I have to say, actually, on that one, now obviously back in the day when it first was played out, I listened to that, obviously, thought it was a brilliant show. re-listened to it because we played it out when Pen was on holiday last week.
Yeah.
And you kind of forget. So, guys, just because you've listened to the show once, go back, re-listen, because honestly, they were talking about the light spectrum in that show.
Fascinating, isn't it?
You're not going to get that from a title. You're not going to get that information from a title. You're going to just hear Let Castle, and you're going to think elementals. You're going to think a spooky old castle. Do you know what I mean? But when you actually listen to that show, and this is what I mean about your show, and I'm going to sound like a bit of a fangirl, I suppose, at this moment in time.
You are. You're the head of my fan club, aren't you?
Well, you know, I have many titles. That is what comes out, is the knowledge that people have. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to pin you down, is to the knowledge that you bring once a week for an hour is nothing compared to the knowledge you have stored in your brain. Now, you touched on World War II to start with. That was a very early influence for you, coming through from your family's interest and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, my dad's a I suppose you call it an amateur pilot. He's a pilot, but he's never done it as a job. I don't really know where it came from. I really don't. I mean, both my grandfathers were RAF, but neither of them were pilots. I've gone to air shows. Well, I've been going to, I mean, it sounds really weird. I've been hanging around airfields since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, because Dad was, he was a gliding instructor from quite a young age. So I've always gone to the airfields, because they're cracking places for, actually really good places for kids to learn how to ride bikes and things, because you've got disused runways that they can just amuse themselves on. Or safely, obviously, because there's a lot of aircraft going around. And if there's one coming in as an emergency landing, you've got to know to get out of the way pretty darn fast. But... so I've always been around air aviation, and I think because I've always liked to be a little bit different. You know, people go, "Oh, aeroplane's really scary," and I'll be like, "Hang on, I went up in my first one at 7, like a 4-seater Cessna light aircraft." So where I got into more of the sort of, if you like, the faster aircraft and the world, I genuinely don't know what triggered it. I've been thinking about this. I was actually thinking about this in prep for tonight, and I can't, even my mum and dad, we were talking about it last week, and they can't remember where it came from. So I do wonder if there's something in my previous life, if I was one of the ATA girls flying the Spitfires or something. I don't know, but it does something to me when I hear an old aeroplane, like an old World War II aeroplane, go overhead. It makes my heart beat in a good way. And I just want to be in there. I want to be in the aeroplane. It's kind of, without sounding stupid, it's kind of spiritual almost. It kind of has a real deep effect on me to see them.
They are very evocative, those sounds, though. I mean, even, you know, I stand there, I hear a Spitfire go over whatever through the various air shows that have been on, or, you know, some of the older aircraft, they are very evocative, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it is something that you can't explain, really.
Yeah.
And I don't know many people that haven't felt that. You don't look up to the sky like, you know, for a Boeing 747 or whatever they are. Do you know what I mean? You go, oh, aeroplane. But when you hear like one of the older aircraft, you're drawn up, aren't you?
Yeah, it's the prop. It's the sound of the prop aircraft. I mean, to be honest, you're saying about Boeing, if I saw one as low as some of the airplanes, like a light aircraft would fly over me, yes, I probably would look up and think, oh, shit, that's about to crash.
Well, you should come and live on Canvey, love. We have that all the time.
Well, I mean, when my other half used to live in Harlow, we were right in the flight path for Stansted. But saying that I love. When there was a road I used to have to drive to for work through, I think it was through Elsenham or something like that near Stansted, and you were actually in the flight path, so they'd be coming over you, the jets, the passenger jets would come over you at about 1,000 feet. And I used to actually slow the car down, open my sunroof so I could see it come over the top of the car and make the car rumble. I love it. So even those, yes, if I mean, it get me runway side at an airport, and I'd just sit there with a big grin on my face at the noise. And so it is, yeah, I don't know where it comes from, but I really don't. All I know is my dad has made me promise that, and this sounds really morbid, but it is a kind of a joke in us, that when him and my mum have gone and I've inherited some money, I've got to get my pilot's license. I've got to use that money to get my pilot's license. He said if I don't, he'll come back and haunt me, and not in a good way. So
Well, you'd have to hold it off then, so he could haunt you in not
I would,
a good
wouldn't
way.
I? Get some good
so
evidence.
So he'd get the evidence, and then go, all right, Dad, okay, I've had enough now. I'm going to go and get my pilot's licence.
I told him the threat might backfire on him a little bit, but...
Take him on investigations. You could hire him out.
Zach who? What's his name?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh dear. So that has been a very, as we said, a very huge influence on you, the air side of things, aviation side of things. What airfields have you investigated?
Only a couple at the moment. RAF Binbrook, up in, I think it's Lincolnshire, Leicestershire, where it was a bomber, RAF bomber base. RAF Rougham, the tower, and that was actually a very early investigation. It was actually with Paul Rook and his crew. That's where I heard my first ever disembodied voice. I've only done a few because there's not that many that are that accessible. But I'm actually going to be doing one that was a US Air Force base that Jimmy Stewart, the actor Jimmy Stewart, flew from in Norfolk, and I'm going to be covering that in the new book. And hopefully I'm going to be doing that investigation at the end of this month. And I am so excited because this place has never been investigated. The only thing that remains from when it was a US Air Force, well, they call it RAF, but US Air Force base, is the runway. And some of the sort of hard standing sites, as they would call them. Everything else has been demolished or fallen down. And so it's going to be a one that your imagination won't be able to play tricks on you in that respect, because there's nothing there to envisage I know where things were because I've got the blueprints. But that one because I have had some corkers of stories from people who fly from there. And I've been going there for about 40 years. And I've had things happen to me there that as a kid I couldn't explain. And it's one I've been wanting to get into for about 5-6 years now to investigate. And I finally got approval from the people who run it, the management, to go in there, and it will be featured in the new book. And so that one I am so excited. I am geeking out all over the place over this one, I tell you.
She's a little bit happy about this, everybody, in case you missed the memo there.
It's a virgin investigation. It's never been investigated before. There's no precedent, and that to me, and I'm putting together some very specific experiments to do there.
Horses, love. We're getting on to that. We've got a method.
I'm excited. Can you tell?
I know. She went carried away. She got too ahead of herself in the interview because we haven't even talked about your first book yet, love.
You haven't given me the schedule, mate. I don't know which order I'm meant to be doing things in.
You should let me lead you then. God, you could tell you're interviewing a presenter. Oh my God. Right, let's talk about your first book first of all, because Haunted Histories basically came off the back of your premise of how you work. You research for the history of a location, then you tend to go investigate it or talk to somebody you investigate. And it's got two very different tones in your first book, hasn't it? Yeah. First book, nervous as hell, wasn't sure what you were doing, were you? But you went and gave it a really good crack of the whip. And it's a really, really good book. And you cover some amazing locations in there. Just give us a quick rundown of some of the locations that are covered in Haunted Histories. My Haunted Histories, sorry.
My Haunted History, yeah. Well, just as the reason I wrote it was I've always wanted to write a book. It was one of my goals for my life, if you like, to write one. And I've tried writing fiction, and I've got a pretty darn good imagination, but I just couldn't get it to be quite professional enough on paper, if that makes sense. I just, everything I read back, I was like, no, this is shocking. Just delete. And I can't remember. I think you were one of the people that put this idea in my head. And you said, you do all this research, you write down all these notes on history every single week. It's a shame that you can't translate it to words so that people can read it rather than just have to listen to you. And that got me thinking. And a couple of people said, I think you were one, and there was a couple of other people said it as well. And in fact, I think Richard Estep was another one who'd said it to me. And so I thought, well, let's see if this works as a book. So some of the locations, we've got places like Helverden Hatch, just up the road. Well, from us, really, isn't it? Just up the road.
Yeah.
Landguard Fort, one of my favourite places to go now. Greston Hall Workhouse. Drakelow Tunnels, which was the site of my first ever proper investigation. Again, that was with Trident, with Paul Rook's old crew. Highlands House, another one just up the road from me. Strangers Hall in Norwich, which had never been investigated. Well, I think it had been investigated once or twice when I first went in there, but not for about 5 years. Rougham Airfield, True Crimes Museum, and Chapter 10 is all about Fort Halstead in Kent. So it's quite a varied kind of, there's a lot of varied history in there. There's a lot of varied places. It's not all just one type of place. And a lot of varied experiences as well.
Very much so. Now, one common theme, everybody, on Penny's investigations will be that if she tends to be at a military establishment of some form, that she seems to manage to pull, I think is the expression, some form of ghostly entity. And
it's normally about half my age.
I was going to say quite a few of them, love. It was becoming a bit of like Penny does military establishments, you know. Oh, bless her. And
it really does have me in stitches now whenever it happens. I think it's hilarious.
But it's becoming a common theme. We need to stop saying you're a siren. A siren is what you are.
Yeah. Oh, dear. I mean, I make no bones about the fact a bloke in uniform is pretty hot, but it's, yeah, I tend to get the youngsters. They seem to, and some of them can get quite flirtatious. Yeah. As well. I don't know why. It has to be seen to be believed. Some people who've not seen it happen to me or not been on an investigation with me think I'm joking, but people like Kerry and Steve from Fright Nights, they were there when it happened at Kelvedon Hatch. They saw it happen. And so they can put their hand up and say, she's not lying.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's so easy to, you could read it cold and not know who you are or not know the investigation and, read it and think, oh, really? Again?
She's picking herself up, isn't she? She thinks she's something special. Yeah. No.
But like you say, these are experiences. These are your personal experiences in the field, and you've had witnesses on this. So this is a thing. This is a real thing. So if you want any of your ghosty, spooky nights to turn a bit flirty, Penny's the person you need to take along.
Exactly. I do actually genuinely get some pretty good evidence anywhere that's military. That's got a military link. Something quite strong tends to happen. Whether it would still happen if I wasn't there, I don't know. But I've definitely got something military in my DNA or something that attracts it, because it's weird. And I don't just mean the flirting side. I mean, that is a standing joke, and I'm sure some of the people in the chat room who've been following me for a while go, yep, she said it again. Her 22-year-old soldier from Matthew, I think his name was, from Kelvedon Hatch, if I remember rightly. But I tend to find military places like the forts, like the RAF bases I've been to, it can get quite strong there for some reason. And I mean, one of the ones I'd really like to do, I don't know if you're going to ask me this, is Anzio Camp, the one in, I think it's Stoke-on-Trent way. And that's one I'd love to do, because that's meant to be very active anyway. And I'm thinking, well, if I go in there, what else going to happen? So those sort of places, yeah. But I don't know why. I don't know. But they always tell me they're like 22 or 23, and I'm just like, guys, I really am old enough to be your mother.
Well, this could be a theme for your new book. My Haunted Experiments. Are they as flirtation when I'm not there as when I am there?
Funny enough, I haven't actually thought of that one for it, but maybe a follow-up. You never know. You never know.
You never know, indeed. You've evolved quite a lot. You mentioned your early days with Trident and Paul Rook's team. And now you don't affiliate to a specific team. No. You affiliate with lots of different sort of like teams and go out as a sort of lone investigator joining other groups, don't you? Yeah. That's how you operate now. Yeah. What do you feel is the advantages and disadvantages of that?
I think the disadvantage can be, it's not been, but it could be that you don't bond with the other team members so easily because you're not with them on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. But I'm lucky and that doesn't seem to have happened. Oh, well, I don't feel it's happened because I am quite picky as to who I choose to go and work with. There has to be a connection. Because I'm very much, and you can tell by this interview, I like to crack jokes. I like to have a laugh. I don't think it always has to be very sort of somber. the whole time. And I think that's a good way of generating energy, is to I'm not laughing at the spirits, I'm laughing with them. Because
you're acting normal. You're just being normal around them, really, aren't you? And that's that. We've spoken about this before, haven't we? Where the more normal you are, they're just like people. If you want to go on the premise that the spirit of a person, then surely, just treat them like another person. So act normal. Don't
exactly. Hopefully, when I'm dead, and if I am a spirit, I will have the same sense of humour I've had when I'm alive. So why would you not want to? I mean, it's like when you crack a joke. It was at the British Schools Museum recently. I was trying to speak. I was sitting in one of the classrooms pretending to be the teacher, and the stuff, the lines I was reading out. Oh my God, the perviness of them was, and we were all because you know what it's like when it's that heightened kind of things are going on, and we're all starting to get the giggles, and all of us are getting the giggles, and I think I did actually say the F word just before I had to read the next line, because I'm looking at it going, I can't say this with a straight face, and all of a sudden all the equipment in there was going nuts. And first thing we did was check anything that, check there was no mobile phones near them, check there was no wiring near them, all that kind of, but yeah, the laughter, things were going nuts. And so to me, that shows that they were laughing with us. They could see that I was kind of starting to say, oh, crikey, what am I going to say now? Sort of thing, in a funny way. And everyone's laughing. So I'm quite choosy as to who I work with, because I want there to be a connection. But that can be a downside. If you don't work with people on a consistent basis, someone to their team who's maybe not met you before might think, well, who's she? What makes her so special? Which I have had happen. I can normally turn it around by the end of the night, because they realise I'm not there to try and steal their thunder in any way, shape or form. But the benefits outweigh the negatives. I mean, the benefits I find, I see so many different styles. I meet so many different people. I get into venues that I probably wouldn't be able to get into if I was on my own. And these teams trust me. The people who are running the teams trust me, that if I say, do you mind if I go off on my own for a bit? They're like, yep, fill your boots, just go. And that to me is a win-win situation. Plus they're friends. They're friends now, and I enjoy their company. And without sounding up myself, I do get asked to join teams permanently on it constantly, and I do explain why I prefer to work with lots of different teams. And either I help, if it's a public investigation, I'll take on a role of being one of the helpers to run it, or I'll do the history research for them on a specific place, or if they've gathered evidence or perceived evidence, I'll go and look it up afterwards to see if there's any historical bias to it. So that's what I tend to give back to the teams that are gracious enough to allow me to tag along. So I'm kind of working for them as well, but on a, if you like, a subcontracted basis. So to be honest, I don't feel any. I've gone along as a box guest for a few investigations for places that I didn't really know the team, and I just wanted to get into the place. And I can honestly say I thought, no, I'm not working with them ever again, because they had too many people on them, or they was badly managed, or one of the people who was running it was basically there as a look at how wonderful I am type show, which doesn't appeal to me at all. So, and some of them are just plain stupid. They really are stupid. But I'm not telling you on air what I'll tell you off air, but it's so.
Glad you're aware that you're on air again still, Pen. Just
no, I did know. That's why some of the swear words that were going to come out when I was describing what happened at the British Schools Museum didn't, because I get away with certain ones, but some other ones might get frowned upon. But the teams I get to work with are so much fun, and I honestly, the only downside is that you may not get the camaraderie that you get when you work with a team on a consistent basis. But I suppose because I'm used to being thrown into situations like that, I can build relationships quite quickly, and I enjoy it. I enjoy meeting all these different people. I really do. And if nobody is the same. No two teams I've worked with have the same MO. And it's brilliant. And I get to see different ways of operating and different ways of learning. And for a nerd like me who is constantly wanting more and more and more and more information, more and more and more, it's a great way of doing it.
It certainly is. And you've been very busy this year. You have been incredibly busy this year. You've been out and about. You kind of kicked the year off with the release of My Haunted Histories. We're coming up to the end of this year. I know your second book, My Haunted Experiments. Yes, you're still sticking with that name?
It's either My Haunted or A Haunted Experiment. I haven't decided yet what the actual title is. Haunted Experiment is going to be in the title somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's coming out. Is it going to be before Christmas, do you think?
I'm not sure. I've got it. Possibly not. It might be January now, because I'm not getting in to do the final investigation until the last weekend in November. So depending on how quickly I can get that written up, I've then got to. Because Sarah Chimacero is doing the forward, because obviously she's really good at knowledge on the history of experiments and how to do them, and so I thought she'd be a perfect person to do the forward for it. So she's got to read the manuscript and write the forward. Plus, my editor, the lovely LJ Wilgris, who writes for Haunted Magazine and is an author in her own right, she's going to edit it for me this time. So it depends on timing, but it's self-published. And Andy Saw will be doing the cover again, like he did for Haunted History. So if all of those come together, yes, it will possibly be released before the end of the year, but I'm thinking possibly early January. But I'm sure we'll be talking about it on Parasearch when it comes out.
Oh, I'm sure
Hopefully.
we will.
Hopefully.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, I'm sure we will. Why not? It's something we didn't actually do, did we, with My Haunted Histories?
We did a bit. I mean, we had the competition, didn't we, to win a copy of it. And I know that, say, Joe interviewed me about it, and I know you mentioned it every single week on the live, which would normally come back with someone like Richard or someone else saying, "Has Penny written a book?"
It is a standing joke, everybody. When you hear the fellow presenters say, "Penny, write a book, really?" It is actually a standing joke amongst the presenters, everybody. So, and it's all done with good-hearted banter.
Oh, yeah.
None of it is meant maliciously in any way.
All the little buggers have read it, so, you know.
Yeah, we've all got it. We've all read it, you know. I think we got it within the first press release of it. We was all like there, waiting for it to go live.
A lot of you were like, we've downloaded it onto our Kindle, now we're going to get the paperback, because the paperback on Amazon follows slightly after. The Kindle goes out first, even though you publish for both straight away. The Kindle goes out within literally 72 hours of you press and go, but the paperback can take about 2 weeks because they have to do a few more checks on it to make sure it's kosher. So it was amazing, the support I got from the Parasearch crew for the book. It really I think I said to you when I launched it, if I could sell 5 copies, I'll be happy. Do you remember me saying that?
I do. And I was sitting there going, you're going to sell a lot more than 5. Don't be so negative.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
I have sold quite a few more than 5. It's not quite paying for my airfare to get down to Australia yet, but, you know, it's
one step at a time, honey. One step at a time.
Yeah, it's done better than it, and it's still selling, which is I still blows my mind. In fact, do you want to hear why I'm happy? Because I told you I was in a good mood when Yeah. You want to know why I'm in a good mood?
Yeah.
I was just talking to the manager at the school's museum in Hitchin, and they took 4 copies off me when I did an investigation there, and they've sold all 4 already and want more. So I was like, wow.
Wow.
But that's also going to be...
You honestly can't quite believe that people have bought your book, though. This is the thing, isn't it?
But that's going to be my 3rd book on the school.
Yeah.
I'm already sort of partway through writing that, and I'm going to be going in there and doing some behind-the-scenes work and everything. That's all been agreed, and it's going to be a sort of, not a collaborative effort with the school, but it's going to be, because the school's a charity, I'm going to donate some money from every sale of that book back to the school as a charitable donation. So, because they're letting me in to see all the archives and have time in there on my own and all that kind of thing.
We'll never get her out, everybody. We'll have to mark it in our diaries and make sure she goes home for dinner and stuff.
Where's Penny? So that's book 3, and hopefully, I mean, I'm hoping to have that out before possibly April if it carries on the way it is, because once I finish writing Experiment, I can start really hitting the school one, whilst My Haunted Experiment, whatever I decide to call it, is actually going through the whole editing and proofreading and process. I'm not going to stop writing because it is addictive. It's blooming addictive.
You are quite prolific, because not only are you writing these books that you're doing, you also write for Haunted Magazine, don't you? As well.
I love those guys.
Regular article.
Yeah.
And you do blogs for Parasearch.
In fact, I was actually writing a new blog just before you called.
I banged a blog out today.
Did you? Well, mine's
Yeah.
got to go out before Sunday, so I'm hoping I'm going to get it finished tonight once we finish speaking and get it off to Mr. Rourke with the instruction. This has got to go out before Sunday because it's to do with Remembrance Sunday. It's got to go online.
Talking of that, just a quick plug, everybody. On Sunday evening at 9 p.m, I will be playing out the Remembrance show that Penny and myself did on the paranormal side of World War One, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And
bloody good show, that one. I say it myself, but that
I thought that was awesome.
that was one of my favourite shows I've ever done. Of all the shows I've done, that was one of my best shows, I felt.
I know.
Amazing.
And it was so interesting, everybody. And I think the problem is, whatever you title it as, again, like, it doesn't explain exactly what that show was about. And we covered some of the strange phenomena that was reported around the time of World War One. We weren't just talking about
the history.
We covered some salient facts, but we actually looked into the more supernatural side of experiences that people had. And every now and again, a nugget will come up on my newsfeed or Penny's, and we'll ping it over to each other.
Yeah.
And it is very like that amongst the team, isn't it? If we see something that suits somebody else better than ourselves, then have you seen this? Did you know about that? Have you heard about that? And that's a great thing amongst all of us. We're all, there's a certain amount of crossover, obviously, between shows sometimes. But we can always call on each other. And that's one thing you do as well, is that, if I'm doing a show, on, like we talked about, Paul and I did a show on Anastasia, didn't we? And I want to say Rumpelstiltskin, but that wasn't his name. It was Rasputin. Oh, dear.
The Mad Monk, yes.
That's a completely different story.
That's a completely different one, yeah.
Rasputin. And we off the back of that, Penny and I had about an 2-hour conversation regarding that. Now, this is something you are very well known for. When you ever get a guest, it is not, you think it's an hour show, everybody. No. Penny's conversations, post-show or even pre-show. Pre-show are legendary. They get to the point where they go, we better do the show. I'm running out of time. I've got to go and do so-and-so at so-and-so time.
Yeah. And you know what? With some of the big names I've had on as well, they've gone, right, can we diary so we can carry on this conversation when I'm free? That's happened as well, which I love because I enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy what I was doing, I wouldn't be able to talk to people for that. And contrary to popular belief, it's not just me talking. It's a mutual conversation. It
is everybody. A mutual conversation, that is.
I think when Jane and I spoke, we were looking at the time and it was like, shit, we've been talking for 3.5 hours. Oh my God. It was that kind of conversation. And we wouldn't even touch the surface. I think it's important for that there is a reason I do this. Okay, if people have got time, I always check how much time have we got, because if we have only got 90 minutes, I'll literally do a 15-20 minute warm up with them and then go into the show, either recording it or going live, whatever it is I'm doing. I'm not completely a novice at this, but if they say, I've got all the time in the world, and especially if they're a new guest, someone who's never met me before, I want them to get to know me as much as I need to get to know them. Because when you've got someone like, say, Chris Smith from the Tennessee Race Chasers, he's a well-known guy. He's also not that common. He doesn't do interviews that often. He's quite hard to get hold of. And people like him do get asked, when they're live, they're doing an interview, they're going to get asked questions that they maybe not want to answer. And that's what makes them mistrust people, to do interviews with them. So whenever I get a new guest or someone that doesn't know me, someone that doesn't trust the sort of things I'm going to ask them, and that if I think it's possibly a contentious thing, I will ask off air, is it okay if we talk about this? Just to be considerate. I want them to feel at ease with me, because one of the biggest compliments I've had about my show, and I mean this when I say this is a compliment, is people have said to me, it feels like we're just chatting down the pub. That's how I want it to come across. I don't want it to come across like I'm grilling them. I don't want it to come across like it's uncomfortable. For me, a bit like you and I are talking, I want it to be like it's two mates having a chat about something. And sometimes you have to warm people up if they don't know you already to get to that stage. And sometimes that's why my talks, I talk for as long as I do with people, Because then after the show, it almost feels a bit like, when they're still wanting to talk, or they've mentioned something in the interview that you want to talk about off air, so it's not recorded, or you just want to keep chatting about something that you've thought about that you'd like to talk about on another show. It shows an interest in people, and if they've got the time to do it, and I always do check that, most times they will kill the call and say, "I've really enjoyed that. Wow." And to me, that's what I want. I want them to say, "Can I come back again?" Because that is a big compliment as well. And I mean, most guests will say that to me. They'll say, "Oh, if you want me back again, just shout." And that shows with people like the fact that, some of the TV people I've had on, that they do come back because they had fun.
Yeah.
And that's what it should be about, in my view.
Yeah, it totally should. Now, what do you, little thing that I've been on a bandwagon about recently, this time, oh no, not this time, just after Christmas last year, you were in the Daily Mail.
I was, yeah.
You was in the Daily Mail. How did that feel, that next step up, as it were, into the public eye?
Would it sound weird if I said I felt like a total imposter? I didn't feel. I felt very strange. It didn't feel real. I think it was great fun. I had a great time, and it made me appreciate more when people have to do proper photo shoots. It's not as much fun as it looks. It's actually quite hard work, and it takes bloody ages. But it was weird. It was weird. And then to have people phoning my mum saying, "I saw Penny in the Daily Mail. What's this about ghosts?" And sort of, because I did give my parents the heads up that it was going to happen. Because some of their sort of, and some of the sort of, I mean, most people who know me know it anyway. Say my husband knew it. But I think it was actually when I showed the newspaper to my eldest son, and he was like, "That's you." I was like, "Yes, love." And when I showed him like Haunted magazine, like the hard copy of Haunted magazine, so
yeah.
Whose name's on the bottom of that? "That's you, Mum." Oh my God! And it's surreal. It's surreal. Is it something I'd do again? Yeah, of course I would, if it gets the word out. But one thing I have noticed about media at that level, they do take what they want to take, and some of the stuff they write may not necessarily be how you said it. And that was quite an eye opener in that respect. But yeah, it was surreal, and I did feel like imposter, like someone's going to find out I shouldn't really be here in a minute.
They'll love me in the mail.
yeah. What the hell are they doing? Yeah. It was an amazing experience, and I don't know if you're going to mention it, but then that led on to me being on Paul Ross's radio show. Yeah. A few times, which I loved, and I have got his phone number, and I texted him the other day to see how his new job was going. So it was an amazing opportunity that has opened doors, and who knows what else. But I know the analogy that today's news, tomorrow's fish and chip paper. That's true. That is
the only thing with the media, isn't it? That is the only trouble with you can hit the high time 1 minute and then be down back into gutter the next, as it were.
Exactly. You've got to build. I think you were the ones that said that to me. Is build the strong foundations, so that if that opportunity comes, you can take it, but you don't need it. Yeah. And it's very true. But yeah, it's been a weird year this year. It's been a very strange, like, is this really happening type year.
It has, hasn't it? You've done some quite... I mean, we spoke to you a couple of weeks ago. You've been to the Usborne book launch with the guys. You've been to Bodmin Jail with Richard Easter. I think we can talk about that now, can't we?
We can. Yeah, the book. I think the book's... No, it's not out yet. It's end of this year it comes out. But
all right, so it must be imminent.
It's imminent, yeah. I think he said it's New Year's Eve. He's going to press the launch button on it, something like that. But we talked about that in the show I did with him a few months ago on it. So yeah, it's public knowledge. I was one of the team there because lovely Wes from Canada was there. RMJ, Sage MJ was there. There was loads of amazing people who were helping him out, and it was great to meet them all. And again, see loads of different styles.
All in one room.
All in one room.
Fantastic opportunity that you've had. And one thing you went, that we can't really go a whole show without talking about it, because it is the thing of the week at the moment, is Sage kicks off tomorrow, doesn't it, with their investigation? And you had a chance to go just for a day last year. How much fun was that?
It's so. I'm going to use the surreal word. It's surreal. It's only having been once. I'm trying to think how to describe this. I'm a writer who's lost for words. Yeah. Whether it would be the same with different guests, I don't know, because I've only been the once. I mean, people who've gone for the last few years have said the atmosphere is always the same, regardless of who the guests are. What's lovely about it is all very close. It's all very, you can literally, I'm going to get done for stalking here probably, but you can touch the people. Do you know what I mean? They're not behind like a glass screen, or you don't have to queue up for 2 hours to speak to them. You're mingling with them constantly. Because, I mean, I got to meet Richard for the first time, even though him and I have been talking for about a year and a half. I got to meet the lovely Aaron Sagers, Chris Fleming, Barry Guy, who I've since done an investigation with. Who else was there? Karen Dahlman, amazing lady. She's there again this week.
Yeah.
Who else was there? Barry John was there. We love Barry. Good. So I'd class him as a good friend of mine now. We just hit it off. And also, obviously, meeting people like MJ and everything. And Katrina Weidman. And you know, you're looking at someone like Katrina, thinking all the television stuff she does, and I think her new show launches in the UK tomorrow, doesn't it? Portals to Hell is on Really tomorrow, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the new series of Help My House is Haunted with my fellow Lacey to my Cagney tomorrow night, Jane, with Chris and Barry. So it's but yeah, you see these people that you've seen on television, and you go and chat to them, and they're totally normal, and it is unique for a conference type thing, that you're that close to these people, you can interact with them that much, and I think that's what they enjoy as well. That was the feedback I get from, I mean, Katrina. She was like, she said, I've never done anything like this before when we were chatting, and It's unique, but Coombe Abbey though as a place, wow.
Yeah, you did a show with our lovely Barry John, as you were talking about, and you've done a blog on Coombe Abbey itself.
Yeah.
Was you surprised at the amount of history you uncovered about that place?
Just a tad. I mean, it's linked to the gunpowder plot. Yeah. That was kind of like, I had to double check on 3 different sources to make sure I was right on that one, because that was like, no way. And I mean, yeah, it's a book in its own right, that place. You could quite easily write a book about the history of Coombe Abbey. It blew my mind away. I kind of, when I wrote the blog on it for you, because you sort of said, could you do a piece on something to do with Sage, wasn't it? We were like trying to work out how we could help out with Sage, and I think MJ was doing so many interviews. I said, well, we were just talking about it. There's no real point getting her on Haunted Histories, and I said, well, why don't I do a blog on Coombe Abbey as my contribution to Sage, from my angle, the history angle. And when I started looking into it, I was thinking I'd just find some monastery type stuff. Did not expect to find stuff to do with the gunpowder plot. Did not expect something to do with the original Queen of Hearts, the Queen of Bohemia, Elizabeth. All that sort of stuff. Did not expect to find any of that. And that's actually, in a nerdy kind of way, excites me, because it's like, wow, did not see this coming. And yeah, but it's the place itself. It's mesmerising. When Barry and I were talking about it, as you drive up the drive to it and it just suddenly appears, and you do go, wow. It has got the wow factor just from outside. It's a perfect location for this kind of event. I think MJ has surpassed herself finding it. Yeah.
It's a right little crack out of a location, and everybody who's attending Sage is in for a most definite treat. And I can't believe it's here now. It's been such a long build up to it, and now we're here. And we've got such a lot of coverage going on over the next few days and over the weekend for Sage Paracon. So, as PSH is the official radio show for Sage Paracon this year, watch out for lives on the Facebook group page. And as from tomorrow morning, I will start replaying all the speaker interviews that have been done.
Or Spreaker even.
On Spreaker.
You said speaker.
Yeah, there's the guest speakers.
Oh, I thought you meant speaker on Spreaker. Sorry.
Yeah, the guest speakers on Spreakers. I'll be playing those out over the next 2 days on the build-up for the guest interviews on the actual event. It's going to be a very busy weekend this weekend, is all I'm going to say. Very busy weekend.
Yeah.
Well, the next few days for me are going to be a little bit busy, but hey-ho, it's all good fun. I just wonder...
You relish it. You relish that.
I do.
You live
One year
for that.
I will make it. One year I will make it to Sage.
Well, you never know. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. It's definitely an interesting. I don't know how the hell any of them do the whole weekend though, because just one day of it I was exhausted, and how they do 3 or 4 days of it. I don't know what they do. I mean, MJ handed me a couple of small bags of Haribo to help me on the drive home. I would literally be intravenous-ing that stuff to keep going for the whole weekend. I mean, I would sleep for a week afterwards.
I think MJ is already running on caffeine only, I think is her expression today.
I bet she is.
I'm running on caffeine. That's it.
She doesn't stand still. She does not stand still. She is everywhere. It's like she's cloned herself when you're there, because she's just suddenly, you pass her in one corridor and then she's in another one and you're like, how did you, what? She doesn't stop. She does not stop. She works so hard. But yeah, it's definitely it's definitely something that you have to experience it, the whole setup, to understand what I'm talking about and what other people who've been there are talking about. But I don't know how they keep going for the whole weekend.
Well, we try to bring you a flavour of that here on Parasearch Radio, if you aren't able to attend, and for you guys to listen back to and reminisce on the ones that have been able to attend. So that's a great way of bringing an event into your very own front rooms. So, Penny. There is another side to my lovely Penny that most people kind of, unless they know her really well, don't really know about. Firstly, she packs hell of a punch. She's pretty good in the old gym, aren't you, love?
I wonder what you were going to say I was pretty good in then.
Well, I won't go into the Kama Sutra.
Oh, you're so good. You are so good. Segueing that in, I'm impressed. Sorry, this is an in-joke. People, anyone who saw the photo, I'm going to have to explain this now. Anyone who saw the photo that lovely Mr. Clements had put up to advertise the show, that copy of Haunted History was actually, it was in superimposed. I think I was holding a copy of Haunted magazine or something in the original. But he'd also done a copy of me holding the Kama Sutra to see if that encouraged the listenership.
So going back to the gym, you can lift quite a hefty weight, can't you, my lovely?
I haven't done it for about 6 weeks because of the ankle, so I'm feeling very weak at the moment, but it'll come back. Muscle memory and all that stuff. But yes, I do like to lift weights and embarrass the men who turn around and ask me are you really using that machine with those plates on it? Well, yes, I am, and I'm looking for more, actually. I do enjoy doing that, and also seeing the personal trainers who know me there try not to laugh when somebody tries to correct me on an exercise I'm doing. It does, it does make me chuckle. It does make me chuckle, but I do enjoy. I enjoy lifting weights when I get the chance to.
And the other thing that people might not know about you is that you're a bit of a rock chick, aren't you? You can bang out a decent tune.
Well, I think they're decent. You hate them.
Yes, only because it's not my type of music. That's all. It's not your voice. It's just not my type of music.
Yes, I've been in rock bands on and off since I started playing the guitar when I was 12, electric guitar. And then I switched to singing probably in my early 30s because I damaged my wrist giving birth. This sounds really weird. I damaged my wrist so I couldn't play guitar properly anymore. It's like a carpal tunnel injury and I couldn't play the guitar, so I kind of switched more to singing and dabble in that every so often. Been
in bands? Come on, don't underplay this. You've been in bands.
Yes, I think my favourite experience. Well, I've had 2 favourite experiences, and both of them were actually doing karaoke. One was on my hen do. I was at this club that had 3 or 4 different areas in it, and there was like modern dance music type thing, and then what they called old school dance, which I still didn't know any of them. You probably been all right because you like that kind of music, but I was kind of like, yeah, let's just drink a lot. And then another area was a karaoke room, and my friends who I were with didn't know I could sing, and one of them dared me to get up, so I did Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. And she was going to do it with me. Within about 2 seconds of me starting, she was like, I'm out of here, I can't compete. And they said people were actually coming in to hear it, coming into the actual karaoke room to listen. And I got a round of applause. And the other one was, Wayne and I were on holiday with my husband, and I'd said to him, if they ever do karaoke, I promise I'll get up and sing. And the last night we were there, they were doing karaoke, and he goes, come on, you promised. And there was no rock music on their schedule, so I ended up doing Money, 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 Money by ABBA. And I got a standing ovation. I actually had people leaning over their balconies listening, and the next day when we went to leave, one of the entertainment crew, she went, no, you can't leave, and I was like, why? And she goes, I got people asking, when's the professional singer back? I was just like, bloody hell. So yeah, and I sung on my wedding reception. I did a Blondie song on my wedding reception, and in a wedding dress, singing one way or another in a wedding dress. It's quite surreal. So yeah, I do occasionally. Well, I don't get out that much now with 2 young kids, but I've got a few friends. When I was able to go out more, friends' bands, they'd be like, right, come on, do Highway to Hell, AC/DC, come on, up you come, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I actually, I can sing with a band quite easily. Give me a song and I'll learn it within a few minutes and get up there and sing it. Anything from AC/DC to ZZ Top. See? And I'm hoping you've heard of at least one of them.
Yeah, I'm not the complete novice. You've been working on me for 3 years, Penny. Come on now. I'm like, it's not brilliant. It's a bit like my geography.
Jimmy Page.
Oh, no. Led Zeppelin.
Yay!
And that's because of Bowl, Sky and House.
That's it. Boleskine, yeah.
All because of Bowl, Sky and House, or however you say it.
Boleskine, I think. But
that
you
place.
can pronounce whatever way you want, really. That place, Crowley's place, yeah. Yeah, so yes, I'm a rock chick as well. I've been known to get down and dirty and with loud guitars and heavy drums and long hair, yeah.
So Penny, available for any author work or writing work that you want done, weddings, bar mitzvahs, speaking occasions, just about anything this girl can cover. She never ceases to amaze me on the Haunted History show. And, I'm looking forward to your new book that's coming out very soon. I'm looking forward to more shows from you on Parasearch. And I'm looking forward to lots of fun because, we're going out together next year. I've got to go out more. Everyone keeps saying I've got to go out more. So we will be going out and doing some bits and bobs together next year, won't we?
I've got a few places in mind, actually, to talk to you about. So there you go.
On that note, we've actually come to the end of Haunted Histories. I'm going to let Penny lead you out with her very famous saying.
Oh, God, I've got to think now. I've got to go back into presenter mode. Excuse me. You caught me out there again. Okay, so don't forget, you've got all the lives coming from Sage this week. If you've missed any of the shows, fret ye not. You can catch up with them on Spreaker or YouTube. Just make sure you click like, share and subscribe. That's me snicking your line there, Kerry. But on that note, thank you ever so much for listening to me talk about myself for nearly an hour, which, believe it or not, isn't as easy as it sounds. And have a good evening. Sleep tight. And don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.